Joe Biden is calling for an assault weapons ban, and this is something he has called for many times in the past, but is reiterating it. And unfortunately, we're going to dive into some specifics here, but unfortunately, it's one of those situations where I guess optically this is something he can do and rhetorically and maybe push the conversation in that direction. But as far as this being something that could actually get done in Congress as it currently is politically broken down, not so much. This actually won't happen congressionally. But here's him saying this recently.
Red flag laws, period, just based on knowledge, not on parents saying or loved ones saying you should arrest this person now for his own sake. It's ridiculous. We got one of the first red flag laws in the state of Delaware, my son Bo.
He's talking about red flag laws now, but second point he gets on is assault weapons.
Was the one enforcing it, and it made a lot of difference. It saves lives. So that's number one. Number two, the idea we still allow semi-automatic weapons to be purchased is sick. It's just sick. It has no social redeeming value. Zero, none. Not a single solitary rationale for it except profit for the gun manufacturer.
Can you do anything about gun laws during the lame duck, sir?
I'm going to try.
What will you try and do?
I'm going to try to get rid of assault weapons.
During the lame duck?
I'm going to do it whenever I got to make that assessment as I get in.
So, again, it's like him saying there, the only time that he would have some chance in the world would be during the lame duck, but he kind of strayed away from necessarily saying that's our only chance, because you never want to say that as a politician. But after the lame duck, meaning the period between now, the election, and once people actually get sworn in and the new Congress is set, but once that happens, the Republican House is never going to pass legislation to ban assault weapons, and neither is the current Senate for sure. I'm not even sure the entire Democratic caucus is on board with that. Not to mention the fact that because we have the filibuster, you would need to get 60 votes, meaning you'd have to get 10 Republicans to support this. It's not going to happen. But again, raising issues like this in the public discourse and keeping it in the conversation to let Americans know who overwhelmingly support this type of action that you're with them and that you want to push for these types of things is not a bad stance to take. Here is a Fox News contributor talking about this, and at the beginning he highlights the point I just made, which is this is popular in the United States, but yet our representatives don't go along with these types of actions.
Well, I think the president is reflecting a sort of a national frustration, but his frustration in specific, remember, he was behind previous ban on semi-automatic weapons in the 90s. Today, Jillian, it's still the case that universal background checks and a ban on semi-automatic weapons is favored by a majority of the American people. But Congress won't act, and the Supreme Court, in fact, is going in the other direction, saying that state and local restrictions on open carry, stand your ground, all those are violations of Second Amendment. I mean,
right. So it is wild, especially on the issue of universal background checks. There's something like 80+% of poll respondents will say in the United States that they're on board with that, and we still can't get it. And it shows you kind of the broken nature of our situation politically right now and the quality of representation that we have, all to benefit, really it comes down to gun manufacturers. Now, that's not to say that many of these representatives see a strong belief within their base in favor of absolutely no restrictions. That is a reality. A lot of people do believe that. But at the end of the day, the only entity or even individuals that benefit from these bizarre lack of laws that we have is the gun manufacturers. And there really is no need for people, average citizens, to have their hands on something designed to be a weapon of war and kill as many people as possible. Here's a CNN moment where on one side you have the, for much of this clip, pro-gun control individual who's making some points pretty effectively, and then at the end you see the anti-gun control guy jump in and get shut down pretty quick.
One of the things that have changed in the last couple decades is the assault weapons ban expired. and that is something that Republicans have opposed when the Democrats have brought it up before. I don't have any trouble saying that the problem is the guns. So, mentally unwell people exist everywhere. And another big difference between the United States and other countries is they actually have services for mentally unwell people. And this is another thing that Republicans always bring up whenever there's a mass shooting, but never have anything to say about any other time of the year, while Democrats are trying to pass bills to expand mental health services, whether it's through expanding Medicaid, whether it's through Obamacare, whether it's through specific mental health services, Republicans are opposing them. So to sit here and act like there's nothing we can do, there are so many things that we could do. I grew up in a house in Alaska with dozens of guns. So it's not as though I don't understand guns or I didn't grow up around people. I mean, everybody I knew had a gun, right? Everybody hunted. And most of those people would, if my father was still alive and he was sitting here, he would say, get rid of the high power weapons that are mowing down people. That's what he would say. There's no need for this. And when I was growing up, we had shotguns. That's what people use. Now suddenly everybody thinks they have to be Rambo, and that they have some constitutional right to be Rambo. Constitutional rights have limits. They just do. You can't yell fire in a crowded room. And the idea that we could never limit this because people want to have it because they like to go to the range and shoot it while children are getting gunned down. I'm sorry, I can't accept that.
I mean, for me,
Very briefly.
Yeah, I just think that the shootings and mass killings we've seen over the past week show that it's not just about
It's just the
banning
past week.
AR-15s.
I mean, this is like a game that you guys play.
it's
I mean,
over
it's like,
and
come
over.
on. I mean, to sit
in
here and
Idaho,
actually,
there's this-
you
there's
actually
this
going to sit here
mass
and say to
stabbing.
me that mass shooting, there's no connection between mass shootings and the fact that somebody doesn't have to reload the gun that they're using?
Yep. I think she did a good job of kind of summing up a few of the different arguments that are obvious. Sometimes I get bummed out talking about these types of stories because we do this song and dance over and over and over, and horrible tragedies happen. People rightfully identify solutions that wouldn't solve the problem completely, but would affect the severity of these types of events and would save people's lives. And then one of the sides says, oh, but what about mental health? But then whenever we try to invest in mental health, they stand against those types of pieces of legislation. And then we move on, everyone stops talking about it, and the next tragedy happens, and on and we go. So it's a little bit aggravating, even covering these, even though I am very supportive of the type of argument she's making and of this type of action that Biden's pushing for. It just feels a little bit like a hopeless loop, even though I do think eventually we will get there once we have better representatives. But right now, it definitely is hopeless. Last thing I want to look at with you is a state senator in Virginia who represents Chesapeake, where the recent shooting happened at the Walmart, Senator Lily Louise Lucas. And she says in stark terms that people within Congress need to stand up and support Biden's agenda on this.
The next step would be for the do nothing Congress to get up off their asses and back the president in this initiative. And I'm sorry, please forgive me. My emotions are I'm getting a little bit carried away here, but I feel very passionate about this. The members of Congress need to get up off of their behinds and do something to get behind these measures that the president is putting forth, because otherwise we're going to sit back and just continue to see these mass shootings all across this nation. And it makes no sense. And especially since we have within us the power to make a difference and just don't do it.
Yes. Let me sum up one more time this, because every time I cover a story like this, I already know the comments that are going to be left on it from some people. People kill people, guns don't kill people, or it's about the mental health, or this or that, or this or that. Yes, people kill people. Yes, a lot of this is driven through problems people have mentally, of course. A properly functioning individual is not going to go kill a bunch of people regardless of the weapons they have access to. But on top of that, other countries have problems with mental health too, and they don't see the amount of people get killed that we do for mass shootings. And if you have someone who is deranged enough to want to kill them, it's not a great idea to make it really easy for them to get a weapon that's designed to assist in that effort of killing as many people as possible. And so absolutely we should invest in mental health. If you're right now a Republican who's saying that as a means of debunking my argument, turn around. It's your party who's blocking the mental health investment. And it's a both and situation. We do have to invest in mental health while we also take away people's ability to get weapons of war. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to be a part of what makes this show possible, plus get access to the full video version of the show hours before any of the clips are uploaded to YouTube, plus get access to an extra full show every Saturday that only members can see, you can do so by going to patreon.com/Luke Beasley. That's patreon.com/Luke Beasley, and there is a link in the description.